Hello and welcome to Off the Roll. I'm your host, Troy Hirschman. On today's podcast, we talked to Jim Routhier. Jim was the longtime athletic trainer at Concord High School in Elkhart, Indiana. While he was at Concord, he was also the girls volleyball coach, spending 22 years and a 472-179 record as the girls volleyball coach at Concord. When he retired from Concord, he became the women's volleyball coach at Goshen College in Goshen, Indiana. So he has an interesting story to tell, some great athletic training stories. Jim was also the Athletic Trainer of the Year for the IATA in 1990 and was inducted into the Indiana Athletic Trainers Hall of Fame in 1998. Jim is also a member of the Ball State Cardinal Sports Medicine Society Ring of Honor, which he was inducted in 2004. So let's go off the roll with Jim Routhier. Welcome to everybody to Off the Roll. We're talking to Jim Routhier today. Jim, longtime athletic trainer at Concord High School in Elkhart, Indiana, and then finished up his career as a volleyball coach at Goshen College. And so we're going to talk to Jim today and let him tell his story. And from what I understand in my research, this is a great story. So I hope everybody enjoys it. So hi, Jim. How are you?
How you doing, Troy? Doing well. Sun shining, can't beat that.
Yeah, you just got back from Florida too, didn't you?
Yeah. We now that my wife and I are both retired, we spend the winter in Florida.
Yeah, good.
Snowbird.
Yeah, great. Well, this is how I usually start off every podcast with everyone. First of all, where are you from? Where's your hometown at?
Fort Wayne, Indiana.
So what high school did you go to in Fort Wayne?
Went to Elmhurst, which is no longer. They tore it down 2 years ago.
Okay. Yeah, now defunct. Okay. So you're from Fort Wayne, and kind of talk to us a little bit. I normally ask how you got started in an interest in athletic training. But I think in reading and doing my research a little bit, you didn't start out at Ball State, did you?
No. I kind of wound around. I started out, I was at Elmhurst, I was in athletics and everything. And Indiana, Purdue, Fort Wayne, IUPU was the college. I thought, I'm not sure what I want to do. So I went out there for the year when I graduated in 68. And they were just starting their basketball program and baseball program and soccer program. So they offered me a little bit of cash and said, hey, you want to, if you make the team, basketball, you can play basketball. So I ended up playing 2 years basketball and 2 years baseball there.
Okay.
And then's when I transferred to Ball State because I thought, okay, I wanted to go into science of some type. Okay. Actually, I started out in architectural engineering and electrical engineering at IU Purdue, but I was colorblind and I didn't do well in that right away. Couldn't tell one wire from another.
Yeah, it's interesting if you listen. If you haven't had a chance to listen to some other podcasts, but I mean, the amount Ron O'Neill, Rob Hunt, I can go down the line with people I've talked to that all started out in some type of architecture, engineering type program, and then said, no, I'm going to change gears and end up in athletic training. I think it's interesting because there's some correlation between the two in regards to you're just applying some of that kind of curiosity towards the human body versus a mechanic.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And when I have to give Jim Dickerson all the credit for getting me into athletic training, because I was down there. I thought, okay, I'm gonna major in biology, maybe go into the anatomy and maybe med school eventually or use something with it. And I took a class with Jim Dickerson, Athletic Training 101, I think it was, first aid and athletic training. And I really jumped on that. I really loved it. I loved working with athletics. I loved working with the motivated athletes. And then I got to go out on the football field with or actually practice with Jim Dickerson and his staff and everything. And he'd stand out there for 3 hours and tell jokes. And you know what? I thought, what a great job. I got to do this. I don't know.
So who was at Ball State? I mean, you kind of were in that class. So who was at Ball State when you were here?
Picture? That black and white picture's got our graduating class. I think Jack Mansfield was in there.
Yeah.
Steve Cezanne. I think Ken Evans was in there. Of course, Coddington, Jim Russ. Trying to think of who else was in that. A couple people I can't remember. Bruce Manifold, who I think didn't stay with it. I think he did something else when he got out. But yeah, that was quite a group. It
is. I mean, just the sheer. Well, that's almost. I mean, how many in that group are in the IATA Hall of Fame? I mean. Yeah.
Just about everybody.
Just about everybody. Exactly. Yeah. Just about.
Well, that was back when I never heard of athletic training. Never heard of it. I'd take that class, and that was kind of the real starting of athletic training in Indiana. And I remember going to the first IATA meeting. I think it was at Butler, and it was like they're just getting the organization together. Jay Bradley was there. I can't remember everybody else, and it was a good time to be around. It was a good time to get in.
Yeah. So while you're at Ball State too, you're taking athletic training classes. You're helping out with athletic training, and then you wind up in a volleyball class. Is that correct?
That's correct. Scott Grimm, Grimm. Scott Grimm was a friend of mine I met down there, and he was on the volleyball team. Okay. And so I took a volleyball class with Shondell, and Shondell, of course, said, "You're pretty good," And I really took to that too. I mean, I didn't know anything about men's volleyball. I was used to, volleyball when you have all the family over. And
right, yeah.
I hated that.
Out in the backyard.
Yeah. So I got my training down there under probably the best I could with Shondell. I mean, he was the guru when it came to volleyball, of course, back in the 70s.
Yeah. So how did that work? Were you like going to volleyball practice and then trying to sneak off to help out with because it was at that time when you were there, so Ruddy Adams was kind of still here as the head athlete.
Yeah.
And then Jim and Sindri were here teaching classes and work, whatever Ron was doing as well. I mean, so how were you splitting your time between athletic training stuff and being on the men's volleyball team?
Well, I wasn't actually on the team. I was more, at the practice. I was more the practice player. I mean, that's what, and which I really enjoyed. I mean, that's, if you're going to learn it, that's where you're going to learn it, at the practice. And I wasn't good enough to be, I wasn't 6 foot. And
right, yeah.
And so I really learned it that way. And I was putting in hours in the training room. At that time, they had a minor. They were just started. So I thought, okay. And that'll fit real well into my pre-med I was looking at with the biology. And I was on the 5-year program anyway, so.
Right. Yeah.
And then I got married down there too. I mean, I met my wife down there, and that kind of settled me down,
Yeah.
A funny thing about me marrying Steph is that one of the athletic trainers that I met down there was Bill Myers, who was a GA at that time. And I got to know him pretty well. And my wife, Stephanie, had a roommate, Chris Charters, and he didn't know anybody or anything. So I said, well, here, I'll just fix you up with a date with Chris Charters. Well, they got married just the same year we did. And he went over to Toledo and was athletic trainer over there at a high school and a clinic for many, many years. And we still meet him every year down in Florida.
That's awesome. Yeah. Because I mean, that's, again, as stories that you hear about just different, how athletic trainers have connected over the years, and then different types of relationships and stuff that develop out of that. I'm sure there's lots of stories of I work with this guy that I introduced him to my wife's friend or sister or whatever. I mean, I was trying to think of the story when I was at Indiana State. Dwight Fraze, who used longtime athlete trainer at Newcastle. His wife, I'm trying to think of the connection, but it might have been a niece of Mel Blickenstaff.
Oh, wow.
I know. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'd have to I'd have to talk to Dwight to find that connection again. But yeah, I mean, he knew Mel Blickenstaff, and when
That's crazy.
and I go and I don't know if there was a connection there on if they met because of that or what, but yeah, there was a connection there.
Oh,
So
I know the connections, and when I got in with athletic training, the IATA, again, it was in the infancy years, but the people I met, Rick Shaw that I worked with, and Jay Bradley, and of course I can't think, of course, Jim Russ and stuff, but really nice people. Jack Mansfield was another guy I really, really enjoyed. And the more I was around those people, it's like, these are the kind of people I want to be around. These are the kind of people I really enjoy being with. Oh, Kip Smith down at IU, he was very instrumental. And then I got on the IATA board. I don't know how smart that was. I think Rick talked me into doing that. He said, "You need to run for treasurer. You need to run for treasurer." All right, and I did. And I got on there for 10 years, and it's like, holy cow! Yeah. Driving down once a month from 3-hour drive, getting back at 3:00 in the morning, going teaching. But it was great camaraderie, great people to work with.
Yeah. So from Ball State, you went to IU, correct?
Well, from Ball State, I got a job up here in Elkhart, and I was actually assistant director at the brand new YMCA that they had just built, and I was the outreach director, working in putting programs together and stuff. And I ran a couple clinics, student trainer athletic training clinics out of it. And I was there for about a year, and the head person there, Chuck Best, he knew everybody in Elkhart. I mean, he knew everybody from the janitor to the mayor to the president of every company. And I really learned everybody in the area who did what, and my name got around. And that really helped a lot. Yeah. Then I got that teaching job at Concord. My wife and I thought we'd stay here maybe 4 years, 5 years, but that became 6, and 6 became 7. And again, right place, right time, started the program, and never regretted it.
Right. Yeah. So how many athletic trainers were in that area when you started out?
There was myself, and then let's see. I think I'm not sure if Mishawaka, if he was over there at that time or not. Is
that Bob?
Bob, I don't think so. Trying to think. I think Goshen was the only one that had one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Don Ogle was over there at Goshen, and we got to be real close friends. We'd meet for breakfast on Saturday mornings after our practices and stuff. And and we laughed because we'd always end up in the championship game at Goshen and Concord. They were big rivals, and we'd go out afterwards and congratulate the guy that lost because football was over.
Football was over with, yeah. that still goes on. I think that still goes. I mean, yeah. There's I'm really good friends with the men's basketball trainer up at Western Michigan, and we've joked like we've ground through a season in the MAC, and we're mediocre or something, and we call it the game that nobody wants to win. From the athletic training standpoint, that nobody wants to win. Yeah, that's it.
Congratulations, you can go on to basketball.
Yeah, like 1 year he had to, if they beat us or something, they were down here. That was it.
Oh.
And if they win, they go to Cleveland. If they lost, it was over with, and they beat us. And he wasn't too happy that he was going to take off from here and go to Cleveland. So,
oh boy, we won.
Yeah. And then a couple of years later, that was me at Eastern Michigan. So, it comes back and gets you every now and then. But
It's a long season. It's a long season.
Yeah.
But and Concord, the people up here at Concord were just awesome. The coaches and stuff. And of course, I started a student training program. And back then, what was it? Kramer had those Kramer workshops all the time.
Right.
And I had kids at those Kramer workshops. I put together a workbook for them. And I was fortunate enough, I put a proposal together so the kids could put in hours and get varsity letters. And, you know, I had 12, 14 kids in the training room that was helping me and stuff. Yeah. And that was really nice. I really enjoyed that. And Don Ogle was super. He had the same program that he did, and we'd trade student trainers once in a while. They'd go to our practice, and ours would go to theirs, and they really liked that. I mean, that was big time.
Yeah, no, and that's, I think that's the thing that to have that kind of guidance to maybe look at that as a job or any healthcare job at that point, you know, after you graduate from high school, was important to have. I mean, did you have any that became athletic trainers out of that program?
Yeah, quite a few. One, Steve Carter ended up getting his athletic training, and then end up with the Detroit Tigers for like 20 years.
Oh, wow.
He was up there. I had Kelly that was down at Bremen. Got a couple others that are at various high schools around. Had one that he was awesome. He was autistic, high functioning autistic. Yeah. And I had him in my anatomy class, and he loved athletics. I mean, he couldn't dribble a ball to begin it, but he ended up coming in the training room, and he would stand in the corner for a while. And I kept saying, "Come on, you know, it's all right," and everything. Yeah. And by the time he graduated, he was so engaged with everybody. Now, he didn't like doing girls softball because they were too noisy, and that bothered him.
Right. Yeah.
All the rest, and he went on, got his degree, got his master's degree, ended up someplace over in Ohio as in a hospital setting, and so he really did well. Nobody ever thought he was going to be able to do that, you know, being high functioning autistic, but he just fit him perfect.
Yeah. That's amazing. I mean, again, and those are the times that you probably changed somebody's life and you didn't even realize it, you know. And
no, you don't, you know, and that's one thing. You know, I had opportunities and looked at going to college and clinical and everything, but gosh, I fell into the teaching, the anatomy, the biology, the medical anatomy. I loved that. I just loved working with that age kids, and really thought that's where my calling was. So I stayed there. And I'm glad I did.
Yeah. Yeah. So at this time you're the athletic trainer teaching, and then somehow you end up as the girls volleyball coach at Concord.
The girls volleyball coach quit at the end of the season, kind of, I don't want to say kind of unexpectedly. And that was back when girls volleyball was just 1979, 1980, and through there was just getting started and everything, and the court was in the corner of the gym. I mean, it wasn't even in the center court; it was clear over in the corner. And I knew
because we all knew what the center court. We all knew what the center court was reserved for, right?
Oh, that's right. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. We got the new AD that I was good friends with, and he said, "JR," he said, "You went to Ball State. You were down there with them on volleyball." He said, "Why don't you apply for the job?" I said, "I'm already doing athletic training." He said, "Well, we can work it in. We can work it in." He said, So, well, I told him, okay, I'll apply, and, you know, if I get it, I'll do it for a little while. I did it. Yeah, I did it for 24 seasons, I think, but I really enjoyed it. Again, you see the other side of the kids as well as in the training room, and I had a good time with it. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think in this article I read, your record was 472 and 179. I mean, that's a Hall of Fame record in itself. Outside of athletic training.
I never kept track of that, and I will say it was so funny because when I got my 400th victory, I didn't know what it was, and at the end of it, all of a sudden they got balloons and everything else. I'm saying, what in the heck's going on? What's going on? All of a sudden they posted 400th win goes up. I'm like, oh my goodness, I didn't even know. I don't know. I just keep on going.
So did you, in those wins, did you beat any like any former Shondell, players or anything like that, coaching or?
We won a couple sectionals and stuff, but up here it was Mishawaka that was ranked one year. Mishawaka was ranked number one. Penn was ranked number three. I think it was Memorial was ranked number six, and we were ranked number eight.
Wow.
And we're all playing in the same sectional. So only one
Yeah.
of us was getting out of there. So for about, probably 8-9 years, whoever got out of sectional went down to state. We never made it down to state. We made it through regional once, and it was just fun. It was just
Yeah.
good competition. It was when volleyball, but we did move the court to the center of the court. We did. When I started, I said, Bob, if one thing, if I take this job, I said, I want the court in the middle of the basketball court. And he said, we can do that.
Yeah. That was good. Cause I mean, again, that was the thing though. I mean, it was the basketball court reserved. I mean, that was reserved for basketball.
That was for basketball. But I will say Concord always was front and center on that. I mean, I never had a problem with any of my budgets. In fact, in athletic training, never. I mean, I put in what I needed and everything and told them how much it'd be, and I'd get a thing in my mailbox saying, okay, go ahead and order it, and it was right. Always that way. In fact, when we had a building project at the end, I forget when it was about 15 years before I retired, and there was a section, they had a little training room that they were going to make for me and stuff. And I went in and said, well, wait a minute, here's this wall and here's the wall. If we just close this wall off, I can have a whole training room much, much bigger. And the architect looked at me and said, well, you realize that's like 1,300 or 1,400 square feet. And I said, and the superintendent at that time looked at him and said, so? Yeah. What's wrong with that? And we got a really nice training room out of it. I mean, the program was well respected, and we had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, because what you were working out of before wasn't nearly that big, was it?
Oh my gosh, no. In fact, I started in a closet. That was about 12 feet by 6 feet wide.
Oh wow.
Yep, and it was I got a whirlpool that was painted green inside. I had to scrape all the green paint off, and I mean, they didn't have an athletic trainer before, so I was the first one there, and he just kind of took it from there. And but I had tremendous support, and for my students that I had, when we went down to state and were runner up a couple times in football and basketball, every one of the student trainers got a ring. Everyone was always invited to the banquets and everything, and always recognized. That it really helps the program grow.
Yeah, and that really is that's a reflection on what you were doing there for not only the student athletes, but the kids basically, but also the coaching staffs and stuff understood that you were an important part of what was going on, and the students were an important part of what you were doing.
They did. The whole system was very good that way.
Yeah. So in 35 years, I mean, you just talked about it. I mean, you went from a closet to a 1,300 square foot room with probably a few more tables and maybe a little more bells and whistles in there and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, is that kind of what you saw? I mean, you've seen it to where, like you just talked about, athletic training in Indiana wasn't that big, and then by the time you got done with your career at Concord, you've got a bigger room. I mean, there's probably more athletic trainers that are in the area at different schools. What is maybe the biggest, if you can talk a little bit about the biggest changes that you saw in that time in your career at Concord?
Well, I've seen almost, I don't want to say full circle. When I started, there was nobody, and NATA was really pushing high school athletic trainers. I mean, that's where they needed to be. And teaching, I mean, I have a teaching certificate and athletic training. And now, and it got to be where there was quite a few, then the NATA kind of shifted a little bit and went into the clinical, went into a lot of other stuff. And now with the way they've got the program, it is almost impossible to be a high school athletic educator and athletic trainer. It's so much bigger, and I'm not saying that's bad. I mean, that's good, for the education purposes, but basically you've just legislated out the high school athletic trainer. Almost every athletic trainer that I know in a high school setting is a clinical that comes,
Right.
and does the time there, which is fine. But there's such, and I really advocate for this, and there's such a difference with having an athletic trainer in the high school teaching and working with the kids during a day and then being there for them at night. Then, okay, I'm going to come in at 3:30 and take care of the kids. I mean, that's, you can't get to know them that way. I mean, you do,
Yeah.
but you don't. And I mean, during a day, I don't know how many times, I can't even begin to count the amount of times I had kids come into my room and say, JR, what time are you going to be down there? Or one thing or another. In fact, we had, I won't name any names, but we had coaches from other schools call me and say, you still got your last hour prep? He said, can I bring over a couple kids
Right.
for you to look at? And yeah, you can do that. That's not a problem. So, I mean, that aspect of it, you can't get just coming in from a clinic. But I understand the finances and I understand the new licensure and everything. It's impossible. Jim Reed took my spot. He was graduated from Huntington College. He was probably, I think he was the only teacher educator that was graduating with a certification in athletic training at that time. And he took over for me, and now he's out of it. And again, the hours are horrible. I mean, you teach all day and then your athletic training and you've got to cover and everything. And you're there till 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night, just about all the time.
Yeah.
So you got to love it. And he went into industry, make more money in less time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I think that's where what's some of these entry-level master students are grappling with is that and people and the educators are telling them they don't have to do that, and I get that. I mean, we're all looking for a little more better work-life balance is what they want to call it. But the thing is that there's give and take with that, and that's what you really try to develop is
Sure.
Like next week we don't have basketball workouts, so I'll come in next week and there's a few guys that are going to be in town, and I'll work for a couple hours and then I'll go home. That was the one thing that I remember when I did my internship with the Philadelphia Eagles. Otho Davis, we're all us interns, there were 10 of us, and we worked all day and we got everything set up for the next day, and we're sitting around, we were waiting for Otho to tell us to leave, and Otho comes out and goes, "What are y'all doing here?" We're like, "Well, we're done." And he goes, "Well, when there's nothing to do in the athletic training room, you go home."
You were waiting to hear that.
Yeah, and we all just looked at each other and went, "Okay." But he was trying to tell us that, hey, when you're done working, you don't have to hang out here. You don't have to wait here.
You do. You got to balance that. And I see why clinical training and covering the high school and the sports, I can see where that's a better balance. I mean, you're not quite teaching all day long, grading papers, setting up labs, everything else for and I enjoyed the teaching. I really did.
Yeah.
And going in the training room or coaching or one thing or another. And that's true of coaches too. Coaches in the high school, they taught all day long and then coached, and you always had your season and always seemed to be a long one, whether you're winning or losing.
Yeah. Yeah. But you're right. I mean, you would develop relationships, as you'd see kids in the classroom, and maybe even make it applicable for what, especially if you're teaching anatomy, to what they're dealing with. And then they would see you that afternoon and say, "Okay, this is what I just talked to you about in the classroom. Now I'm going to actually put it to use here." Yeah.
In fact, that was my one thing I always said in the beginning. All of you in my classes, most of you aren't going to be doctors or nurses or anything else, but hopefully when you go in the doctor's office and he talks to you about your patella or femur, or you got shin splints or something, you at least know what's going on. And that was my goal.
Yeah. No, and that's an important thing, because you and I both know that I have athletes that come back from the doctor and I'm like, "Well, what do they tell you?" I don't know. I don't know. Something over here, you know. I'm like, okay, so that you know, now I got to call them and find out what's going on. But talk to me a little bit about, and I asked this question to John Coddington a little bit, but you know, you've alluded to it a little bit, but the starting of the IATA and how it was going and got started and stuff. I mean, you were right on the front end of all that, and to where, you know, it was David Craig, it was like you said, Jack Mansfield, it was
Jay Bradley,
Ralph Reef, Jay Bradley. Yeah, I mean,
oh yeah.
What were your thoughts on that? Is it, you know, was it like, hey, we need to do this, or where's it going, or whatever? Yeah.
Yeah, when I got into it, you know, these Jay Bradley and everybody else was really kind of the pushers and really knew what was going on. And I just kind of came into it and said, okay, you know, I think this is a great idea. And so I can't even, now that I look back at it, it just happened. I mean, I know behind the scenes with a lot of people, I wasn't in on the original, you know, the documentation and everything. Was, I think Reisinger was, and some other people. But when I got in there, it was already just starting to get rolling, and Jay Bradley was the treasurer for a while. And when I took over, I got a shoebox with a bunch of receipts and a loose leaf notebook, and I think we had I don't know, $1,000 in the kitty or whatever.
Yeah.
So, you know, I put all on computer and everything, and by the time we got done, we were investing on we had invested like $10,000 and in a money market, you know, and stuff. And I really enjoyed that part of it, and I enjoyed meeting the people. I mean, they were just great people to work with.
Yeah.
Marge Allenbaum was real instrumental in that as well. Wasn't many women in it.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing that I think, you know, your kind of athletic training generation, that was still, you know, Title IX was obviously, and that's, everybody's making a big deal about 50 years of Title IX right now, but that's just when it was kind of coming into play, and you just didn't see a lot of women in athletic training at that point.
No, we didn't.
And then as time went on, that more and more and more came involved and became in positions. But
well, I know out of my students in the high school, I probably had maybe a third of them were girls, and quite a few of them went on and went into athletic training, or at least took it in college. A couple of them became athletic trainers. Kelly was an athletic trainer down at Bremen for many years, and she was hired strictly just as an athletic trainer. She didn't even teach class, and so it was good to see that a lot of the women like that went into it.
Yeah. Now, were you part of the group that was helping out with the Hoosier State games and that stuff in Indy? Yeah.
Oh yeah, Pan Am games I worked, and the Hoosier State games, and the Nike. Jim Hahn was our basketball coach when Sean Kemp and we had that big run down the state and everything, and he got involved with Nike, and so I worked a lot of the Nike camps. Actually, I think Jay Bradley was in charge of the actual putting together, and I got involved with it, and I really enjoyed that. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And a lot of opportunities with the athletics, and I worked state games, and then of course the North-South All-Star football game and the baseball game and stuff. And I enjoyed that. You know, problem is, from up here, it's a 3.5 hour drive to Indianapolis.
Right.
So anytime you went, you either spent the night or drove back and got back at 3 a.m.
Yeah. And you were, I mean, a lot of that stuff was in the summer, and you were, off. You know, you were off trying to be off. And yet, did your wife ever go, what are you doing again now? Because I know mine would have been like, you're going where, and what are you doing in the summer? You're supposed to be home in the summer. So
we had a lot of conversation about that. Well, I'd go to Jim and set us up because he'd take the basketball team like Miami of Ohio or Ohio University, not Ohio State, Maryland. We went out to, and they'd always say, "Well, Jim, you got anybody that wants to come out and work?" And he'd say, "Yeah, I got an athletic trainer like to come." And they said, "Oh, great," And we'd take the wives. She went with us. We went out to Maryland. We went over to Ohio the one time, and of course, she'd go out shopping or one thing or another,
right,
and enjoying the sights. But no, it worked out really well.
yeah, yeah. That's that would be the thing that my wife or convention. She's like, "What are you going to convention for?" Well, that's what we got to do to get our CEUs. So
That's it. Oh, the CEUs, boy, everything was about the CEUs.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
That's one thing I don't miss. I love the convention. Don't get me wrong.
yeah.
I love the convention, but it always seemed like by the time I got done that period and did all the CEUs, I was like one short or something like that. I just,
yeah. That I've had that happen, and you're scrambling at the last minute. I mean, you're trying to do it in a timely manner to get it done, and then sure enough, you come down to like you said, you need one or two more CEUs, and
yeah,
and you got to scramble to find something.
Go online, find a course you can take.
Yeah. This will, and all these, they're changing it again, and
they are.
Yeah. They're supposed to. There's a lot of rigmarole with it, and there's supposed to be more control on what you can use and stuff, and it's funny. The last reporting period that I turned in, that you have 10 hours that you can basically put anything on as long as you can document that you took the course.
Yeah.
So I'm a 4-H leader, and so yeah, so I have to do this whole child predator education program through Purdue, and so that was at least an hour and a half. So I counted that. Yeah. I mean, I said,
anything you can put on there.
Exactly. No, I mean, you can, whatever. If I took an online course like that had something to do with 4-H training, then I put it on there. And of course you had to have so many, but of whatever they category A or whatever. But yeah. I mean, I needed help, and thank goodness I had those courses I had to take that helped me get over the hump. But
it's like doing your taxes, looking for anything you can to put.
Yes.
What else can I deduct?
That's a great correlation there. It's as painful as doing your taxes, and as agonizing trying to figure it out and put together. So, So I mean, talk to me a little bit about some of the athletes that you got to take care of when you were at Concord. You brought up the 88 boys basketball team with Sean Kemp. I mean,
Jeff Massey, Sean Kemp, both those kids were just awesome. We had some great football players, the Adams kids, Roy Swope. A lot of kids a couple of them went to Ball State. Tom Kahn's son went down there. He was down there, and of course Sean was a lot of fun because when he was there, you knew that he was going somewhere. I mean, and we went quite a few times. He invited us up to see him play, and he treated us really well. And then a bunch of his coaches and they invited me along, went out to Seattle. About his second or third year out there, and we got to meet the coach and practice and everything. And yeah, it was a lot of fun, and it's totally different. I tell you, in the pros, they don't practice hard. It's not anything like it. And like Sean said, he said, they expect you to come in. And Jeff Massey went over to Europe, and I got a call from him. He was playing in Poland. And he said, JR, he said, are you going to be home next week? I said, yeah. He said, well, I got an injury. He said, I'm not going to let him touch me over here. He said, get a hold of Doc Mann. He said, they're flying me back over. He said, how soon can I meet with you? So I said, just get back here. And sure enough, 2 days later, he's back here, and we treated him back here, and he stayed here about 2 weeks and then went back over. But so I don't know what kind of sports medicine they have over there, but he didn't like it.
Yeah, I had a kid with the kid that we had here that played at Jared Jones, that played in he's from South Bend and played here probably early 2000, 2010, 2011, somewhere around in there. And he got hurt overseas, and he sent me an MRI report that was he was playing in Hungary, and it was in Hungarian. And I'm like, I can't read this MRI report. I said, just tell your agent to get your butt back here. And I said, do not let them touch you. He goes, well, they want to do surgery. I'm like, no, don't do that.
No,
Just get him back here. And it was like a minor knee injury, that they wanted to cut on him. And so same deal. He stayed over here about 2 weeks, did some therapy and stuff, and then went back, and he was like the MVP of his tournament. But and he's still playing. He's still playing overseas. But yeah, I mean, I'm like, do not let him touch you. Get your butt back over here, and he avoided the knife, so that was good. Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, I think House that went down there to Ball State, played basketball for you guys. He was right after the time. I mean, I was part-time in the training room then, turned it over to Jim Reed and stuff, and I got to work with him. Nice kid. Kid. And it was enjoyable to work with him and stuff. Yeah, it'd been a lot. And I was fortunate enough when I went over to Goshen College, we ended up recruiting her, having an All-American, Penny Achayo, in volleyball. And it was really fun to coach her for 3 years. Great person, great volleyball player, and of course, Linda Kaminskis. I think Linda Kaminskis went to IU, but she was the athletic trainer over there at the college. And so we made up. Now she lives right across the street from me. So
again, it's one of those, it's crazy things, isn't it? I mean, how athletic trainers kind of end up connecting.
Oh, I know. Well, she was trying to get her hours in years before that, and she was out at Northridge, and so she came and worked under me at Concord to get. That was back when they had the what do you call it, the hour program,
right? Yeah, the internship. Yeah.
Yeah, and so she did her internship with me at Concord, and then ended up being an athletic trainer at Northridge High School, right in our conference, for about 20 years, and then went to the college. So we've been friends for a long time.
Yeah.
And she was on the committees at the IATA for us quite a while.
Yeah, I remember that too. And because I think she might have been on the last History and Archives Committee.
Yeah, I was on that with her. Yeah. Bob
yeah.
Schreiner and everything, and Mark. Yeah, we're going down there.
Yeah,
went down to. Yeah, that was.
I don't know what I'm on anymore. I was on 3 different committees at one time in the last 2 years, and they just the leadership changed on the committees, and so I don't know if I'm on any committees anymore. But
you check your phone when you're next to committee.
Yeah, I mean, I was on this professional, or I forget. Ryan Galloy was the chair, and then he resigned, and I don't know if I'm still on that committee or not, but. That's how I got in that. That's how I got in that IATA commercial that they ran during National Athletic Training Month. Because Ryan's like, make a video of you taping an ankle or something. And I said, okay, I can do that. And then it ends up being in the commercial. So
I remember when we had that first poster I was involved in. We wanted to, when I was on the IATA board, and they wanted to make a poster. So I ended up putting together a bunch of pictures and everything. And we had an IATA poster of athletic training. I had forgot about that. God, too many things.
Yeah, it's the things that you do that you're like, nah, I'm gonna just do this, and nothing will come out of it. And lo and behold.
Well, that group that was on that, they were movers and shakers. I mean, and especially Rick Shaw and everybody.
Yeah.
And they did a lot of work behind the scenes. I was just along for the ride most of the time.
Yeah. No, I totally understand that. So talk to me. You retire from Concord, and then you end up being the women's volleyball coach at Goshen College. How did that come about?
Oh, that's kind of bizarre. I'm getting ready to retire, 2010. All right, so it's and everything, and all of a sudden, I get a call. Of course, I had coached, and I had quit coaching quite a few years before that, from one of the coaches in the area. And she said, and her daughter was at Goshen College. She said, hey, she said, the head coach here is retiring. You need to apply for it. I said, wait a minute. I said, I'm just retiring. I said, I'm going to take it off. She said, you'd enjoy it, And I said, no, thanks. And she kept hounding me.
Yeah.
Hirschberger hounded me for about 3 months and finally said, okay, I'll apply. So I went ahead and applied. And of course, her daughter was on the team, and I interviewed and everything, and I ended up getting the job. And of course, my wife says, "You're going to do what?" But I really enjoyed it. And then I got involved with the athletic training over there, helping Linda out, which was really nice. So I helped Linda out with the athletic training room and with the coaching, and really enjoyed that. For about 10 years, and then said, "It's enough."
Yeah.
Time to sit back a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, you get past that 40-year mark, and you gotta start thinking that you needed to do something else for a change, and enjoy
right.
you. That's
Yep. You're right.
That's
You're
where
right.
That's the thing is that we all are working towards that time that we can do what we want to do when we want to do it, and stay healthy enough to do that. So
you're exactly right. And that was tough. My first year after I retired from everything, it was a little tough. I mean, because you're used to going all the time, and all of a sudden you're not. So I had to get used to getting up and having my coffee and sitting around and thinking, well, I don't have anything to do today.
Yeah. In fact, I forget who I was talking to about that last week. But that's what they said. The hardest part was that first 2 months, 3 months, whatever it was, to figure out what I was going to do.
Right. Well, I love doing old cars, and I've got an old 66 Mustang that I've restored. It took me 20 years. And I'm, kind of showing that different places and doing stuff with it. So I enjoy that. You take up pickleball, and that's big down in Florida. So I'm playing a little bit of that, and stuff. And, just trying to kind of with the grandkids and stuff. And nice thing about grandkids is they come over, stay, and then they leave.
Yeah.
We got swimming pools, so they're over here for that and stuff.
Yeah.
And I really this last year started to enjoy it. I can't.
Okay. Now. Yeah. So during the pickleball, nobody knows what you used to do, right? They're not. You're not telling them like somebody turns an ankle. You're not going, oh.
I'll tell you, you say that, and you probably get the same thing. I'll tell you, I swear I treated more teachers and parents and everything else than I did athletes half the time. I'd get a call on the weekend. Oh, my husband just twisted his ankle. What does he do? And bring him over. I'll take a look at it.
Yeah. No. I mean that's the thing. I call it. I mean, I would always tell our students. I said, if you want to have, especially at the college level, if you want to have longevity at the place you work at in the college level, take care of the kids. That's important. You got to keep your team healthy and stuff. But if you take care of the coaches, you're going to be seen indispensable. And
exactly.
And I would always take care of the coaches, to the point where one time I was driving back from my in-laws on Christmas Day, and one of our assistant basketball coaches called me and said that his mother-in-law had gotten this hip pain in the front of her hip, and he wanted to know if I would come in and take a look at her. And I'm like, it's Christmas. I'm driving back from my in-laws.
It's his mother-in-law.
And it's his mother-in-law. And I'm like, I'm sorry, if it's that excruciating, you're going to have to take her to the ER. And I hate to tell you this, but that's what you're going to. Well, it turns out she was passing a kidney stone.
Oh, my God.
So there'd have been nothing I could have done in those regards. But he goes, well, I didn't know who to call, so I just called you.
That it? Yeah, you're the expert. I don't know how many times you probably get too. Somebody will go to the doctor, and then they'll give you a call. Hey, the doctor said this. What do you think? Well, I don't know.
I haven't seen you. I don't know.
I know.
I mean, sick kids. Coaches' kids that were sick, or
knee injuries are all the time over the phone. Well, palpated here, does that hurt this way? It's like, okay, and that was big. But and at the high school level, that was one thing I always felt good about. I had a very good rapport with the coaches and the parents of the kids. I mean, they trusted me. They knew what I could do. They knew that if I told them you need to get to the doctor, then they had to get to the doctor. And I always like that. When I went and spoke at various classes, I always said, if you want to be the chief cook, bottle washer, and everything, and be totally in charge, go to a high school, because you are the authority there. Everything goes through you. And I said, it's different, but I really enjoyed it for all the time that I did it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and again, it's you're living in the community. You got to watch. Yeah. I mean, did you have, like, I talked to Mark Lito about this, because obviously Mark's been at Hobart for almost 30 years. And did you ever have the luxury of taking care of, like, one of your student athlete or one of your athletes' kids that you took care of when you first started at Concord?
Don't even go there. Yeah. I still remember the first time his kid said, when he was in my class, he said, "Oh, Mr. JR, you had my dad." And I said, "I've been dreading this day for..." Oh my God, I know. Oh, that's horrible. That is horrible. Now I got grandkids there.
Yeah, I mean, that happened. I mean, I never thought it would happen to me. And then when Chandler Thompson's son Josh transferred in, it's been about 4 years ago now. He popped up on the table to get his ankle taped, and I went, "Holy crap, I'm getting old." Because I looked at him and I said, when your dad was an athlete at Ball State, I taped his ankles too. And he just starts laughing. He thinks it's hilarious. And I said, this is a hard one for me to swallow right now. Because
the other day when I was down at our local restaurant, Ann High, one of my student trainers came in, and she didn't go into athletic training. She went into nursing in the college. But her daughter was with her, and here she is at Anderson now, and she's at athletic training. She's always wanted to go into it. I told her all about you, and I was like, "Oh my God, couldn't you talk her out of it?"
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, that's the thing. Your influence is generational, and it's beyond anything you can control at this point.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and you don't know for 20 years, and all of a sudden somebody will walk in and say, "Remember when this happened?" And like, "Oh my gosh, I totally forgot about that."
Yeah. So you've done a lot of different things in your career, both as an athlete trainer and a coach and stuff. If there was one piece of advice you would give some young people today that are thinking about either one of those professions, what would you give to them?
I always told my kids in class and student trainers and everything, whatever you do, I don't care what it is, do something that you enjoy. If you hate getting up in the morning and going into your job, whatever it is, whether it's coaching, teaching, and no job's perfect, then you need to change jobs, because you need to be happy with what you're doing. And I think that is one thing that I've always tried to follow through with kids, and I've had kids come back and say, I didn't know what you were talking about until I had this one job, and I hated it and hated it and hated it, and I quit, and then I got into something I love, and now, I'm enjoying life. And I think that's so important. There's too many people, like, you're going to work 40 years of your life. Do something you enjoy. I mean, that's why I got into it, because I said, I like athletics, I like medicine, I like science, etc. Jim Dickerson, if you can tell jokes all day out there on the field, then you know what? This isn't too bad. And the people around you.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the thing is that we've all.
You're going to be stressed in any job.
Right.
And I still remember getting that envelope, certification envelope, and setting it on the table. Okay, do I want to open it? Do I not? Do I want to open it? Do I not?
Yeah. I mean, or the adage that, people would tell you, like, if it's thick, then you didn't pass, and you're going to have to take it all over again. And
that scared the living daylights out of me.
Yeah. And because I got mine, and I was still in Muncie, working at Medco that summer.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Right.
I was working the year after I graduated, or not the year, but the summer after I graduated, I was working in the warehouse at Medco. And so I'd taken the exam in June. Yeah. And or was it June? Yeah, it was June, 1st of June. And then July, because now the kids get it all online like 2 weeks later. They don't even understand how long you had to wait. Probably you probably had to wait a little bit
it's right
longer.
there. Oh, I don't know how long mine was.
Yeah.
I forgot you worked at Medco. I got to tell you a story about Medco.
Okay.
A friend who's a dentist who has pretty good finances and stuff. We were real good friends. And he said, JR, he said, you need to get into more than athletic training. You need to get into business. You make more money and so on. And I said, well, maybe sometime. And then I heard that Medco is going to be sold. And so he put together the finances. He was at that time going through an MBA program at Notre Dame. So he took it over. I mean, we put together quite a portfolio, took it over. His prof looked at it and said, looks good. And we were in the final two down there at Medco. And the lady, I can't think of her name that owned it. Anyway, she decided and met with us and she said, I'm going to go with the other bid. Your bid was excellent and that might have been better, but I'm afraid you're going to move it out of Muncie because you don't live here. And I guess the guy that bought it owned a machine shop there, one thing or another, and had a business there. And so he was going to keep it there. And I wanted to keep it there. I mean, we were just I was going to move down there and stuff. And then what happened? He ended up selling out and now it's out in, I don't know, Ticonderoga or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But we came this close. I mean, we came within inches of getting that.
So was that with Jim's group that got the bid over you at that point in time?
I don't think it was Jim's group. Was he in on that?
Well, it was him and Dan Brenneman and there was another partner in there, Mike Lunsford.
The one that got it actually had a business there in Muncie, I understood.
Yeah, I mean, Mike Lunsford he was a real estate agent. I don't know about that. I'm trying to think. I knew that I used to remember the history of it all, and that's where Paul Calloway would come in and probably be able to know that better than I did.
Yeah.
I can't even think of the name of the people that had it when I worked there, but it was right after that I left that they sold it to Jim. Jim was a partner, and like I said, Dan Brenneman and Mike Lunsford were kind of in the same situation, because that's where Brenneman basically kind of talked Lunsford into, like, after a while, to get rid of Jim. And that's why, then at that point in time, because of that, people were like, hey, if Jim Dickerson's not there, we're not buying any. Sean Cumber and I basically said, no, you'll never have our business ever because of that. As long as you guys own that company, I don't care what you shoot me bid price wise, we're not doing business with you.
Well, did they sell it then?
Then they sold it to that group in Buffalo. Yeah. Which now it's so convoluted now. I mean, that company got sold to a hedge fund group that bought Kramer and Theraband, and there's another one in there.
Wow.
It's really interesting what is it? I mean, they make strange they're connected, but they make strange bedfellows when it comes to that. And
it's all about the bottom line.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's exactly it. And
we didn't know exactly who it was. I mean, we thought we knew who it was that she picked over us, but she told us right out that she's afraid we were going to move it out of Muncie.
Yeah, it's interesting. I went past that building the other day, and I don't know if they're getting ready to tear it down or they've stripped a bunch of stuff off of it. And I think there was a heating and cooling company that had it for a while, and they were using it like a warehouse. But I need to go past there again to see what's up, because, man, if they're knocking that thing down, I need to go get a memento from there.
Oh, you need to. Yeah, you need to.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't work there very long. But there's a lot of athletic training history in that building.
Oh my gosh, who was the before Paul Calloway? There was a elderly gentleman that would always come up and was the rep up around us, Boyd Housley.
Okay, yeah.
And Boyd was with him for years, and that's where I got to know him from. Yeah.
Yeah, I knew I'd heard the name Boyd Housley, but IATA Hall, and I'm trying to think who
Yep.
else was in that. Who else was the sales rep there before? Paul, again, I did a podcast with Paul Calloway and Brian Maddox, and we talked about all that because both Paul and Brian started out at Medco. So
I'm gonna have to look up. Well, you give me all the podcast things. I'm gonna have to listen to that one.
Oh yeah,
I like it. Yeah,
they've been good. Well, listen, it has been great to talk to you. Like I said,
great to talk to you too.
Your story was awesome, and I knew it after I read that article. I knew it would be. So I'm so
convoluted, a little turned around all over the place.
Yeah, but it was so awesome, and it was so awesome to have you on here. And
well, like I said, I owe a lot of who I am and what I'm in to Jim Dickerson and Ball State.
Yeah.
And maybe it was just, right place at the right time, but Ball State is still and always will be a great place for anybody to go to school. We got a lot of our kids up here that go there. I try to support them as much as I can, and people like you that keep it going and everything. That's the important thing.
Yeah. No, that's what all this podcast stuff is about, is that we keep these stories up and going, and you get to tell them. And that was the thing. That was the thing that just so disappointed me, that I didn't do this earlier with Ron and Jim, because basically what I had scheduled, I had this. The first podcast was going to be them, and I had it scheduled on the Sunday that Jim went in the hospital, and we just never could recover from that. So lots of people will tell us stories about Jim and that as if he were here telling them himself. So.
Yep, he'll always be remembered, and that's how you keep him remembered. Keep him in your thoughts all the time. Absolutely. Yeah, I tell you, it's been great being with all the people that I've met in athletic training, and I'm looking forward to the iGoats meeting that we're having in July.
Yeah, I would love to. If I didn't have this wedding, that was the deal. I was going to take my phone and just start having people tell stories, because that's the thing. Awesome. The thing is, but I've got to go to this. I got to go to this wedding on the 15th. But the thing is that there's so many connections with that group. That,
there are.
Between Vinny and.
Oh yeah, there's another guy. Risinger.
Yeah, and Steve's got so many connections and stories and stuff. And as we get through some of these Ring of Honor members that I'm having on the podcast, eventually I'm going to start reaching out to some other people that I know that are connected to at Ball State's program, but maybe didn't go to Ball State. Like Steve got his master's here, but he didn't go through the education
I didn't know
program.
that.
Yeah.
No. Where'd David Craig go? Where'd David Craig go? Did he go
Purdue?
Purdue. He was at Purdue.
Yeah.
Trainer.
Yeah. Because
I remember he called me once because I hadn't touched in with IATA for a long time, and he said, "Is this Jim Routhier?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "You're alive." He said, "We've been looking for your obituary."
That sounds like David. Yeah, David would be another great one to talk to and stuff.
Oh, he would be.
And
because I know would be another good one. He's an IU grad, but he was very instrumental in the IATA.
Yeah. But yeah, we'll get a lot of these down and get people telling their stories and have some fun along the way. So.
Good.
But I really appreciate you to being on here and
thanks for asking. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was. I knew it would be fun. So we've gone off the roll with Jim Routhier. Okay. I want to thank Jim for coming on the podcast today. He's definitely had a career that's had some twists and turns for the good, but like a lot of high school athletic trainers, I think they end up kind of putting on different hats at different times. Jim did a really good job and was successful in a lot of different areas, and was one of the first high school athletic trainers to institute a high school student athletic trainer program in conjunction with his teaching responsibilities. And as he said, a lot of kids that he had as student athletic trainers went on to being athletic trainers or other healthcare provider type careers. And I think that can't go unnoticed in the field of healthcare. That a lot of athletic trainers have molded doctors and nurses and PTs and physician's assistants, that our role at the high school level is pretty important, not just for athletic training, but for all healthcare providers. So give us some feedback. Either reach out to me personally on my personal Facebook page, or you can email us at offtherollpodcast@gmail.com. I'm excited about some guests that we're going to line up in the next couple of weeks. It's going to be a great summer for this podcast, and we're going to have a great time. So hope everybody has a great day.